Super. All right. Well, thank you for coming. My name's Joe. I teach project management. I run the master's programs in project management up at the Smurfit Business School in just up the road in Dublin. I created that program about 20 years ago after doing the MBA up at Smurfit. And before that, I had a 20-year career in big tech. So I started as a programmer. Now, programming back in the day when I started, we used punched cards. I go that far back. I remember tripping down the stairs of the CWS building in Manchester and dropping a stack of punched cards, which was 2 days of work. And it was just gone because the cards just went all over the place. We used to load them in a stack and you used to process them. So I have got a technical background, but it's, my tech stack was not what your tech stack is today. Let's put it that way. So we're going to talk about, is academia ready? Kind of AI for business, is academia ready? And I added another question there. Is business ready? Because these days I do a lot of talking about AI to both academic institutions, but also corporates and companies and non-profits in Ireland and in Europe as well. So you're hiring people into your companies. Are they ready? Are they ready for this post-AI world? No, they're not. And Gita's shaking her head. They're not. And I think this is what we're seeing, isn't it? And, I'm not an academic. I'm a businessman who teaches. Okay. But if I kind of wear my UCD hat, are the universities, are the colleges, is the education system at the moment producing graduates with the skills that you, the business community, need? I suspect the answer's no, in most cases. So is academia ready? Probably not. Okay. So this is one of my key points for today. And it's a call to action for you guys, as well as for me. Okay. You want to change things? One of the best ways of changing things is to reach out to your local college, university, or whatever, whether it's Galway or whether it's here. And talk to some of the program directors and say, can we come in and talk to the students? Can we come in and show them what we're actually doing or want to do? Can we talk about your program? Because we've hired a couple of your students over the last few years, but they're coming out with some skills that we want, but you're missing some stuff. And we'd really like them to have these skills, that kind of thing. That is happening to a small extent, but not to a large extent. So that's maybe something that we should be thinking about. Right. So, I mean, why am I talking to you about AI? As I say, ex-programmer, analyst. By the time we got to about 2000, when I came over to Ireland, I ran 3,000 people for General Electric. And then I did the MBA up at Smurfit, and I kind of switched into this portfolio career of consulting and teaching and doing some non-profit work. In the last 3 years, I've written 7 books, 3 on AI, mainly aimed at education, 1 on project management, which is kind of what I teach. And then I also run a photography training business as well. So I've written 3 books on photography as well. And if you like what you hear today, I've got a newsletter on LinkedIn, and there's a QR code later on with all my details on it. And I just do a weekly roundup, 5-minute read of kind of what's happening in AI from quite a practical point of view. So that might be useful. Perplexity have just done a new thing called a business fellowship, where they're basically bringing a load of people who are interested and kind of exposing them to different AI thought leaders and stuff. And I got onto that program as well. So I'm looking forward to that starting this month. It's a small room. You can answer. I don't have to shout. Okay. Why are you here? What questions did you come to this session thinking, I hope he answers that. I hope he gives us some ideas or whatever. And Kita, you reached out to me last night. didn't you? Yeah. So, Wayne, what brought you here? What are you hoping to get out of today?
So first of all, as you're talking about how do we do the project management as well, like and about the AI. People are talking about the AI a lot, and definitely as a partner, Salesforce partner, preferred partner, I was also wanted to understand that what we can bring to value by the AI can bring the value to the Salesforce, and how can I do the suggestions to my customer that what you can do with AI.
Right.
That's
Yeah. And you were talking about this earlier, weren't you? The practical application.
Myself and Joe go back a little bit. I knew kind of from his like LinkedIn activity what I was going to get here, but it's very much about that sort of view of how we can actually utilize AI in the business, not all that sort of AI academia papers around different models and everything else, but actually kind of where it gets used. I mean, and that's probably Joe's speciality. I think is bringing that to life.
Yeah. Amy, what brought you here?
Yeah, I suppose I'm curious. I really don't know, I suppose, in terms of what's to be taught in the universities, then and around AI. So, from Grumman perspective, kind of curious.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions or, what brought you into the room? You could have gone to far more interesting talks than this. Yeah.
I think I am more curious to understand
what exactly is the pain point that either universities and education sector is facing, and how
AI and food services community can step in.
Right. So what's the pain point for AI in terms of Irish universities, and how can companies, whether that's Salesforce or anybody else, step in? That's one of my key points today. So glad you asked that question. That's great. Okay. So I mean, whenever I put any kind of talk together, I try and think, who's my audience going to be and what do they want? And then I try and kind of craft a presentation around that. So these are the questions that I kind of came up with that I thought you might have. So hopefully some of these are resonating. Yeah. And we'll go through some of these in a bit more detail as we kind of go through our half an hour or whatever. You may or may not know, but February the 2nd, a few days ago, not a month ago now, isn't it? Yeah. Was the EU AI Act came into force. Okay. And one of the things that every company in the EU is now mandated to do is have trained its staff on responsible and ethical use of AI. If you're using AI at anything above minimal risk. Okay, so there's these 4 levels that the AI Act is kind of identifying. So the AI Act is a piece of legislation which has introduced basically a risk management approach to the use of AI in the US, in Europe. Very different from the US. What we're seeing in the US is Wild West. Okay, deregulation, do what you like, and we'll kind of just see where it takes us. And then China are doing their own thing as well. So we're actually seeing a splintering geopolitically of the approaches to AI. But we're in Europe, so that's probably going to be our little pond that we're mostly going to be operating in over the next, while. So we need to be aware of the constraints. And these are definitely constraints. Yeah. Who's got an Apple iPhone? Yeah, good. Few people in the room. Yeah, okay. Intelligence? Apple Intelligence? Yeah. Well, it started to arrive on the iPhone, but late. Yeah. And quite a lot of the advances in AI we're not getting as soon as they appear. We've got to wait a month, 2 months, 3 months and stuff like that. And that's the difference between the US regulatory environment and the European regulatory environment. So this is one of the things that we need to start being aware of, is that, the world is now splitting in terms of the usage and the implementation of AI. And as companies and as educational institutions, we need to be aware of that. We need to be training our people. Okay. Go back to the too long, don't read that. Yeah. Many colleges won't graduate their students ready to comply with this. Yeah. My students have all been trained in the ethical use of AI, but I'm in the minority. Most programs at college and university haven't even looked at this yet. And I know that because I'm training staff at most of the major Irish universities, most of the second-tier colleges I've been giving training to, and they're total beginners. They might have opened ChatGPT and used it a few times, but that's about the level of their engagement with this. So quite apart from do they know what AI is, there's no way that they know what it can do, how we should use it best, all that kind of stuff. There's this huge gap at the moment. 25th of August this year, not to worry you all, but that's when the EU AI Act actually will start to be enforced. So after the 25th of August, if you haven't trained all your staff in responsible and ethical use of AI, they can start fining you. Now, they're not going to, in most cases. And do you remember GDPR? There was all the kerfuffle, wasn't there, about GDPR? And then the 25th of May came because I was contracting at the time, and it was a busy time, lots of things to be done, and nothing happened on the 25th of May. The sky didn't fall in, just like it didn't fall in on 1999 with the Millennium Bug. But over the next year or so, they made a few examples. They hauled a few companies out and they gave them big fines because they were non-GDPR compliant. And the same is going to happen here, because this is on the radar of the legislators in Europe. So that's something you need to think about. Where are your uses of AI on the pyramid? Okay, so are you on limited risk? So things like chatbots, stuff like that. If you're just sticking a chatbot on the front of your website to do basic customer interactions, pointing them to different products or services or whatever, that's known as that's limited risk. Okay. Employment, education, public services, safety component, law enforcement. Now we're getting into what's known as high risk. Okay, so high risk, everybody's mandated to have done this. I'm on the UCD AI steering group, which has met twice. It's frightening. Yeah, talk about the wheels grinding slowly. Yeah. And they're still thinking about what they might do. And we're 2 years past ChatGPT. The students are all using it. The students are all on TikTok and ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. And they know all these tools and everything. Universities, it's like, AI? What's that? Oh, is this something we need to do something about? Yeah. So they're well behind the curve. And it's frightening, because if you're in industry and you're talking to customers, you're kind of perhaps more sensitized to the current zeitgeist. And your customers are saying, how can this AI help us? Or, and as a company, you're always trying to cut costs and you're trying to improve efficiencies and stuff like that. So how do we deploy these tools effectively? In academia, I teach my students how to study better. And with the deep research tools that have come out in the last couple of months, it's changed the game in research. I wish I was doing a PhD now, because you could do a PhD now in like a year or 2 years, whereas it used to take 3 or 4, because gathering information is so much easier. If you're doing customer kind of gathering information about potential customers, or you want to enter a new market and you want to do research into a new market, medical devices, Amy, you want to break into the French market or whatever it is, or break into a different industry segment or whatever. Get hold of Gemini deep research, get hold of ChatGPT deep research and Copilot deep research, and start asking them these tools questions, and then combine the answers from them all. And in half an hour, you will have accessed 200 or 300 websites. You will get stuff which is largely hallucination free now, because these deep research tools are what are called grounded. They've got more checks in, so that the stuff that they give you doesn't tend to be made up as much as the earlier LLMs that we were seeing last year have. Okay, this is not cheating. This is making use of tools that are now out there. But so few people seem to know about the tools that are out there. And that's why I write the newsletter every week, because I just keep telling you what's out there. Yeah. And week after week, I get emails back from people saying, we had no idea this was available and whatever. And can you come and talk to our company, or can you come and work with us, or whatever it is. So you've got to plug in, whether it's to my newsletter or whether it's to, other AI newsletters or whatever, because in 40 years of tech development, I started my tech development career in 1982. That was my first programming job. Yeah. So in 40 odd years of doing this, I've never seen the pace of change like it is now. And I lived through kind of, the rise of the personal computer and the rise of computing into business, and stuff like that. But this AI thing is just taking off. And I probably spend 2 hours a day on AI, and I can't keep up. Yeah. Yeah. You're having the same kind of, you're not. Yeah. It's almost impossible. Yeah. To keep up. So plug into people who, like me, who are really sad, and kind of try and keep up, and we'll help you do that. We'll help you do that. So what do I do in my teaching? I start every module. I teach postgrad master students. So they've done their primary degree, and then they're coming back to do a top-up degree of maybe 1 year full-time or 2 year part-time. Pretty much every module I teach now on a master's program, the first 3 weeks, one of those 2 or 3 hour sessions with the students will be on AI. Now, yeah. And I tell them, so I introduce them to the basic tools. So we'll start with ChatGPT, because everybody's heard of ChatGPT. But then I show them Perplexity. What's that? Yeah, Claude. Oh yeah, I've heard of Copilot. That's the Microsoft one, isn't it? Gemini. Yeah. Oh, that's the Google one that used to be called Bard. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you tried Bard and it was crap, yeah, and you never went back to Google, go and have a play with Gemini. Gemini is one of the top AIs now. Absolutely fantastic. It's probably the one I use most is Gemini. I constantly update stuff as it changes. I'm training in AI 2 or 3 times a week. I never give the same presentation twice, because next week the tools changed. The capabilities have changed. Yeah. The civil service asked me to put together a module for them on project management and AI. And I said, I can do that, but the way that we did the last module, yeah, we can't do this one, because they want a slide deck, okay, and they want it timed. How long are you going to spend on each slide, and what are the slides and all the rest of it? And they want to kind of okay everything and all the rest of it. And I said, I give this slide deck today. I'm not going to deliver this slide deck again next week or the month after or the month after. And they say, no, we want this to be for the next 4 years. And I laughed. I said, 4 years? I mean, that's a lifetime. Yeah, it's like dog years at the moment, AI. It's the speed of change is just so fast that you cannot, just codify stuff like this. Talk about agile. Yeah, we've got to be ice skaters now with this stuff. We've got to be able to pivot instantly on this stuff.
Yeah, alien masters.
Yeah.
You go with that. Sort of change.
It's not mine. Yeah, they've UCD has just released an AI master. I've got a couple of slides on different programs. And what they've done is they've partnered with Google and Meta and a couple of the other big companies. Yeah. So they're using, so they've gotten in to the companies that are actually producing the AIs and using the AIs. So I presume that with that kind of partnership, that will keep the material fresh. I'm teaching a module for the Institute of Bankers on their diploma program in AI, and I'm teaching a module on responsible and ethical use of AI. And we've just made it a kind of discussion I've said, right, okay, here's the things that we're going to talk about this week. Now, you go off and research this. I'll do some research. We'll come together in the class and we'll talk about what's happening. No slides. Yeah, no PowerPoint. I say, I'm not going to produce PowerPoint slides because they'll be out of date the week I've done them. Yeah. What we're going to talk about is where we are today and what your challenges are in your companies today and what tools are out there today with what capabilities that you might think about plugging into to do whatever it is that you need to do. Structuring a master's program around this stuff at the moment, it was brave.
Well, it spends you long on your end of year projects.
Jeez, no.
Yeah, today.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be out of date. Yeah. So all we can do is skill ourselves up, is give our staff and our colleagues and stuff chance to go and explore some of this stuff, hopefully in a practical way. And I mean, all my assignments now are project-based. You know, I tell the students, I want you to go and use the AI tools. I'm not going to call that cheating. Absolutely not. You know, use them. Yeah, because you're going to be using them when you get out into the real world at a higher or lower level. How many of you in your companies have got a pro AI tool available to everybody yet? 5 or 6 of you. Yeah. So have you got, if you're a Microsoft house, have you got access to proper full Copilot and stuff like that?
Yes.
Now that's interesting. You have access, but you don't use it.
No, we're a charity, so there's
Which charity are you with? CUH? Crumlin? No. Cork University Hospital. Right. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of the education stuff was important for me for my team because there's a lot of the responsible stuff. We have been very, very careful. Absolutely. And also there's obviously medical advice in some of our documentation, and that can vary depending on who says what, right? So here's the tool, what's it pulling in?
What's it pulling in and where's it going? More to the case. Yes. Your case is really interesting because of all the adoption curves. Yours should be earlier. You should be using the enterprise version of Copilot. Okay. Because if you're not, your staff are going to be using the free tools because they want to. They know that they're out there and they're much more likely to start plugging in and saying, well, I'll just ask ChatGPT this. Yeah. And ChatGPT is porous. Unless you actually tell it in the settings and it's hidden away in the settings not to share data, ChatGPT is going to share data. Okay. The corporate version of Copilot, when you pay the 30 quid a month per employee, which is expensive, okay, but then
Charity.
you get the license, which is better. But what happens then is that all the Microsoft security that's built into the SharePoints and the data access and all that kind of stuff, Copilot just works with that. And it doesn't let the data out of your sandbox, your kind of corporate sandbox. Okay. So charities and hospitals and medical particularly, you want to be using the enterprise versions quicker because they will provide you a far higher level of safety than not. Yeah. And of all the free AI tools at the moment that are out there, the only one that is kind of by default pretty safe is Claude. Claude. C-L-A-U-D-E. Claude, like the French name. Yeah. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Copilot, yeah, all by default share your data. So you put something into a chat, it's in the data set, unless you turn that off. Okay. Copilot free version is plugged in under the covers to ChatGPT, which shares data, unless you turn it off. So they're not safe. The only one that by default data sharing is turned off is Claude. So you've got to be very careful with the free tools. Because most people don't know that. They just think, sure. Yeah, it's a big tool. It's ChatGPT. It must be safe. No, it's not safe. Okay. And this is one of the things that I teach my students. So I brought this AI policy out in December 2022, the month after ChatGPT came out. And, I kind of give every class this, and I say, I want you to use AI. It's not cheating, but you still can't pass other people's work off as your own. And I'm treating ChatGPT or Claude as another person. So if you ask them a question and they give you a page, you can't just put that in your assignment. Yeah. Put it in your assignment and then quote, just give me a reference. This comes from ChatGPT. Yeah. So I ask them now, I say to my students, right, so just reference this as if you'd referenced a paper or a book or whatever, and just say ChatGPT version 3.5, accessed on date, whatever it is, using prompt. And that way, the students are forced to at least think about the fact that they're surfacing, well, what prompt did I use to get that information? And that moves us into discussion of critical thinking and how do we get the right information out of a chatbot? Yeah. Connor was saying that he's built some chatbots and stuff like that. Fantastic, yeah. But I mean, one of the things when you start to get into this a little bit more is it's a completely different paradigm to the old Google paradigm. From 1998 when Google search first came out, we're used to just typing a few words into the search bar, aren't we? And we get a set of links. AI is different. You've got to treat AI like a person. Yeah, you have a conversation with a person. So you ask them a question, and then they give you an answer, and you say, "Yeah, but that's not quite what I was asking." Can you, and you'll have a to and fro. That's how you've got to use the AIs. You've got to have this iterative conversation, and the AIs have now got voice mode. Yeah, which is getting really good. Yeah, the Copilot one's a bit flaky, but the ChatGPT voice mode is good. The Perplexity one is very good. Gemini's one is very good. Okay, so I spent most of the time driving in from Lucan today. It took me an hour and a quarter to get in this morning from Lucan. Yeah, I had a half an hour chat with Perplexity. Yeah, because I'm putting a new module together on bias, and so I just started asking questions of Perplexity in the car. Yeah, so I'm having this chat with Perplexity in the car, and it's just like coming back to me as a normal person with a normal voice. And when I get home, I'll open up Perplexity on the computer. And in my chat history will be that entire conversation transcribed with all the information. Yeah. So that was a really good use of my time. Should I be having a chat on does that count like being on the phone? Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that while I'm driving. Yeah. How am I doing? I'm almost there. Right. Okay. One of the things I ask my students to do now is they do a capstone project, and we used to have them write a thesis. And those were graded, and then that was it. They were kind of put on a shelf and never looked at again. Yeah. Well, what I give my students the option to do now is write a book. You can publish a book on Amazon for nothing. Now, self-publish. If they're going to write 20,000 words, let's put it in a 6x9 kind of format. Yeah. And I show them how to get it up on Amazon. They finish their master's program as a published author on Amazon. Yeah. And over half the class this year have opted to do something around AI, which means that they're going to present themselves to the community of the hiring community with this kind of subspecialty. I've written a book on AI. Now, would you be more interested in talking to that student than somebody who hadn't, perhaps? Oh, right. You've done a bit of work in this. You've got an understanding of this. So there's a credibility for. Those are my books. They're not the students' book. Okay. But this fear of the unknown, the lack of official direction, will come to your question on kind of who's doing what. So yeah, there's an MSc in Advanced AI with Google, Meta, and OpenAI. That's one of the UCD programs that started, I think, last year. CDAR is a collaborative center which is based in UCD but brings together people from lots of different universities and companies. And they've got a 2-hour online training that will give you the basics of ethical use of AI. Okay, so if that's of interest to you, and you maybe want to sensitize yourself to that before you then go to your staff or whatever, just look up the CDAR Center and just Google CDAR, AI online training, and there's a 2-hour free training that you can do, CBT training. Yeah. So it's a nice, easy way to get into that. Yeah.
Is it a latest offering from UCD? The CDAP?
The CEDA is brand new. I mean, it's only been in existence a year, I think. So yeah. So reach out if that's of interest. Okay. And then, I mean, there's others. National College of Ireland have got various business courses aimed at this stuff. Griffiths have got a diploma now in AI for business, and a lot of universities and colleges and stuff are bringing this stuff together. So, I mean, just to finish up with what you should do if you want to accelerate the growth curve, I suppose, of AI in your companies, is reach out to the local universities and colleges, okay, and partner with them. Go in and talk to them. Yeah, Amy, come and talk to my students, please. Yeah, tell them about medical devices and how you're trying to use AI. Come and show your chatbot. Yeah, because the students need to see the pain points and the challenges that companies are facing. Yeah, and the professors also need to hear that, because some professors are just kind of with their head in the sand and they're disengaged from reality. Yeah, some of us are not, hopefully. Yeah, but if we foster those connections, now, if you've never done that before, you may not kind of understand how things work. One of the things that most summer kind of terms, students are looking for an internship. So you might get a master's student in or a couple of master's students in, and they'll come and work for next to nothing. Yeah. And they get a bit of experience in work, before they actually get a proper job. But you also get some inputs from them. Yeah. Funding constraints is a real thing in universities. Okay. But if you've got a tool, or you've got something that you could bring to the university and say, well, look, we'll give your class access to this tool for nothing. Okay. You're training people that you can then hire who come in and can hit the ground faster and hit the ground running. Okay. So that's something that you can do. Yeah. Propose partnerships and bring and the program directors, these are the people you want to talk to. Because universities are this multi-layered kind of institution. If you just ring the university up and say, I want to speak to somebody, go and ask to speak to the program director. That's the person responsible for the academic content of the program. So they can bring you in and fold in, your bit to the curriculum or whatever. They have the say, to do this stuff. So program directors are who you need to talk to. Can you afford to partner with universities on AI projects? Well, you haven't got time to do research. You're too busy making sales. You're too busy trying to break into new markets. That's what universities are for. Yeah, they can go off and put student teams on doing research. Yeah, and you could draw on that. I've got 12 companies in right now this term. Yeah, working with student teams, and the student teams are doing business plans. Yeah, one of them for a medical devices company who want to move into France. Yeah, and my student teams are putting in 400 hours of work producing a business plan for that medical devices company to break into the French market. How much would you pay for that if you went to Deloitte? 400 hours of high quality consultancy work from one of the consultancies. Well, my students next year are working at Deloitte. Yeah, we're training people to go to Deloitte or to EY or whatever. So this is almost a no-brainer to do that. You get to cherry pick the best students. You get access to the professors and their networks. Yeah. Okay. So we're on 5 minutes. So I'm just kind of winding down now. We're almost there. Johnny Mooney did the MSc in project management back in, I think, 2010 or something like that. Joined Explio. He won Project Manager of the Year 3 years ago, I think, the PMI Project Manager of the Year. He brings his team in every year. And every year they hire 4 or 5 of my students. And they've gone on to fantastic careers and stuff like that. He gets to come in and cherry pick. He very often takes the best 4 or 5 students in the class because they've invested a bit of time in the class, and they do CV reviews, and they come and talk about the company and the opportunities and all the rest of it. And the class get to ask questions about their pain points and what their challenges are, and what their clients are asking for and stuff like that. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. Okay. Oh, you've got to scan that. Yes, they sent this out to every session speaker. You have to scan that code to show that you actually came to the session. Yeah. It shows that more than one person showed up, you see. Yeah. There we go. Bing. Magic technology, isn't it? Now, really, the AI should have just scanned your RFID tag when you walked in the door, shouldn't it? You know, I mean, we've still got a lot of friction here. Yeah, we can improve that for future conferences, I think, for next year. That's right. Yeah, yeah. But okay, and then there's another QR code. If you're interested in connecting with me, there's all my details. I'm always happy to talk to anybody. Do reach out. Check the newsletter, and I think that's it. Yes, so that's just the sponsor slide. So I'll leave that one up just in case you want to take a photo or get in touch. Any final questions? We've got maybe 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so we'll start with the lady here, and then we'll go to the back. Yeah.
A lot of very interesting insights, so thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that I was thinking of is taking some of the insights from the keynote into account as well, where there was a very interesting thing said that compliance is basically the baseline, and as you mentioned for the EU Act, this means informing your staff. And in the EU Act, there is no obligation to universities or other educational systems to do the same thing.
No.
But there again, compliance is the baseline, and as a university or an educational system, you should be wanting more than just to
comply. You should be doing better. Yes. Delight your customer rather than just satisfy them. Yeah.
So what I'm wondering there is, if they fail to do so, and I'm not even talking about university, I'm actually talking earlier, like even high school.
Even schools, yeah.
I feel like this is going to increase the gap from a socio-economic perspective.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we were taking that.
There's definitely going to be a digital divide about the people who have access to good AI and the people who have access to the cheap, free AI. And there's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do something about is push this down into schools. And that's why I'm training staff in schools and in colleges and in universities now. But you're right, it's a gap. And it's a gap in the legislation as well that we need to push down into there. Right, I think we've got 1 more minute. So 1 more question. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is slightly a bit more cynical. I just think that we are in a bit of a bubble here. I remember the dot-com bubble.
Yep.
And we had all these companies producing great websites and all the rest of it. And then we look at a company like 23andMe was supposed to have all of this data. It was supposed to be very useful. 23andMe went bankrupt because of the amount of permutations and combinations, which is actually the heart of AI. AI is supposed to be able to allow us to come up with intelligent solutions in a timely manner for permutations and combinations. But it does seem like a lot of companies are just using AI to say, this is a new AI model, let me write an email and here's 40% increase in your prices.
Okay, this is 1 minute past midnight on day 1 of AI. There's a guy called Connor Grennan in the States who does a lot about AI. He says that the AI you're using today is the worst AI you'll ever use. Yeah, and it's just going to get better and better and better. And yeah, we're using it to do silly things at the moment, write better emails, put in decent LinkedIn posts and stuff like that, because we haven't connected AI to data yet. And Salesforce, and systems like this, the agents, and when we start connecting the AI agents, when we start connecting the AI engines that we've started to get over the last couple of years to the pools of corporate data, that's when the magic's going to start to happen. And that's going to happen this year. We're going to start to see that this year. We haven't really seen it yet. So yeah, you're right to be cynical. Who cares about writing better emails? Yeah. I want to know the 10 companies that I should target. That I'm most likely to get better sales from or whatever, or, identify the companies from the millions of companies that are out there that we should target or not, that kind of thing. That's coming. It's not here yet, but it's coming this year, next year. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. Okay. All right.